show and explain your thinking, or explain your thinking, and to use those symbols greater than, less than, or equal to. So when we're reviewing the work, we need to make sure all of those points have been checked or covered. Okay. What do you notice? We're looking at number 1. What do you notice? And I don't want you to say like I noticed she did. We're noticing her math work, okay? What do you notice about her math work? Maybe something she did well. Maybe something that could use refinement. Lena.
I saw like for the diagram she did, she showed that the diagram is one whole.
I can tell that she's partitioned one whole into 3 equal parts and one whole into, well, I have to go count. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. 8 things. Well, I can read it on here. I think the camera's just making it a little bit light. We can read it on here. It says thirds are bigger than eighths, and she wrote 2/8 is less than 2/3. Anything else that you notice that maybe she did well or can refine? Liam?
I kind of find she didn't look very good because the last piece
I can tell she tried her best, but maybe just being a little more careful in the future. Make sure for everybody, not just one person. What else? I notice, and I know which is which, because I'm a mathematician and I can really problem solve through this. But I also notice, like, I can't glance here and know which fraction is which.
Oh yeah, right.
Let's label it next time. If you didn't label your diagrams, make sure you did. Go do that now. Do we agree with Sophie's answer that 2/8 is less than 2/3?
Yes.
Yeah, how can I tell in her picture?
Because 2/3, they're like they're more like it's bigger. Like there are bigger parts. It seems like more parts are shaded.
More parts are shaded. There's a longer length shaded here.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Now, Grayson, can I borrow your book for a second? I want to Grayson, can I borrow your book for a second? Just for number 1. I just want to look at number 1. Now, I want to show you Grayson's model, and his model is great. I looked at it. Oh wait, sorry, was it you? Number 1. Who was it? I think Alex. Alex, can you remember me yours? I'm sorry, Grayson. I apologize. Okay. Now, I'm going to use Alex for an example real quick. And even though Alex didn't use these models, let's look at what Alex did use. He used number lines. We love number lines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. But what do you notice about his number lines?
They're equal. They're not on top of each other.
They aren't stacked one on top of the other. This is not wrong. You certainly can do them side by side. But the problem you run into is you're not able to really tell which one is longer or closer to the whole or closer to 0. It's harder for me to tell. Would you agree with that? Like in this diagram with Sophie's, I could easily tell which one had more shaded because the length of the shaded part is longer. It's on top of it, and it's like very clearly it's longer, right? Now when I look at these number lines,
You have to like really look at it.
and I'm looking at the length from 0 to 1, and from 0 to 2/3 and 0 to 2/8. I mean, I can see it because there's such a difference between these two, but it is harder for me to tell which one's closer to the whole. Does that make sense? So, in the future, we want to really, when we're comparing, make sure we're stacking our models rather than putting them side by side. Does everybody understand why?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for letting me use you as an example, Alex. Your models still look good, but they could look great if they were stacked. Okay. Questions about number 1?
What I do, I just draw like a really big rectangle and have horizontal.
Are yours labeled? Label the sides so I know what each one's, and label your whole number 2. Okay, if I gave you a number 2 card, come bring me your number 2. Good job, Sophie, you did great. Number 2, who are you? Okay, I want to share, or I want Liam to share his strategy. I thought this was a really interesting strategy for number 2. Okay, so the grasshopper is 4 centimeters long. A caterpillar is 12 third centimeters long. Which insect is longer? Liam, you care to share your strategy?
Sure. So number 3/3 is 1 hole. 6/3 is 2 holes. 9/3 is 3 holes. 12/3 is 4 holes. And if you count it into a 12, then it says 12/3. And remember, and 4 centimeters is 4 holes. And 12/3 is 4 holes. So it's equal.
Raise your hand if you knew before you drew anything that these two numbers were equal. 4 holes and 12 thirds. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us did. So Liam was one of them, and he says, well, I can use what I know about skip counting. It's kind of like multiplication. And at first, what did you skip count by, Liam? What is it?
Skip count by 3, 6, 9, 12.
First, he just, yeah, he did 3, 6, 9, 12, and I said, I know what you're thinking, but how can we make this more specific to this problem? And then what do you notice he changed to 3, 6, 9, 12 to?
He made it to 3/3, 6/3, 9/3.
Because we're skip counting by thirds, like 3 thirds, really. So, he made it more specific. Gavin, can I see yours real quick too, since we talked through it? Thank you, Liam. Now Gavin proves, I'm gonna hold on to this, Liam. Gavin proves his, because he thought of it too at first. He says, well wait, they're equal. But what did we do, Gavin, to prove that 12 thirds is equal to 4?
Because 12 and 9 is equal.
And what did you do to prove it then? Because you have to prove it. 4 holes on a, he drew 4 holes on his number line, split each hole into 3 equal parts, and then you counted, didn't you? And you counted 1 third, 2 thirds, 3 thirds, 4 thirds, 5 thirds, 6 thirds, 7 thirds, 8 thirds, 9 thirds, 10 thirds, 11 thirds,
I did
12
for
thirds.
I did like on the first one, I did 3/3, but on the second one, I did 6/3. So like it skipped counting by 3, but on numbers.
Sounds like you did a combination of what Gavin did and what Liam did. That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, any questions about number 2? What do you mean? Like his hole could be partitioned a little. Yeah, that's good feedback.
Well, that actually kind of looks
I think he felt like he was running out of space because
Of that
picture was
picture.
coming up, is what my assumption. Okay, if I gave you a number 3 card, do you still, did you give me the card back? Did I already lose it? It is possible. Okay.
She has the card.
Okay. If you can just put it right by my coffee. Okay, number 3 says, the ladybug crawled 3/8 the length of a branch. Okay. You didn't know. A ladybug crawled 3/8 the length of a branch. An ant crawled 5/8 the length of the same branch. Which insect crawled farther? Maya, can you explain your thinking up here? Excellent. Did she include her greater than, less than, or equal to sign? Yeah, look, right? There's my finger. I know where it's supposed to go. It's a little backwards when I'm looking at it. She says 3/8 is less than 5/8. And I can see, I should probably flip it to look what I'm doing. that she's noticing 3/8 is the one closer to 0, which is why it's less than. Okay.
It looks like he's like wandering on the page.
Because I'm looking at the board and not the book when I'm moving my finger, and it's a little confusing. Okay, so feedback for Maya. Maybe it's something she did well. Maybe it's some refinements. Refinements means like something you can improve for the future.
You base your fractions point.
So her eighths look equal. I would agree with that. Sometimes that's kind of tricky to do, right? But you did really good.
I'm glad I get to participate. Maya, one of the things I really like about your work is that you are constantly telling us your value in relation to that 0. So you've got some really strong vocabulary when you share.
And it's showing like the number sign. Expanding that sign, which is really cool.
There's like a 3/8 and a 5/8 next to the number line.
Oh, I think I know why she did that.
I just labeled it to show like what it should.
You know how sometimes we label the side of the fraction strip? Well, sometimes when people draw more than one number line, they're labeling the side of the number line with a fraction. So maybe we could just put a comma. But that's what that means. Like, because she used one number line to label both of them, so she was showing that she was showing
Less
both of them.
work and less space.
Because I agree with that. I mean, if it's the same unit, I don't need to draw. Yeah, I think that's more efficient. One more.
Maybe next time, like when you're writing your like sentence, you could explain.
That's really good feedback. I like that. Okay, great, Maya.
Good job.
Number 4. All right, no one. Okay. A grasshopper jumps 5/8 the width of the sidewalk. A frog jumps 5/6 the width of the same sidewalk. Which jumps a longer distance? Dawn, can you explain your work?
Closer to the one rule and 5/8 were closer to 0. So I knew that 5/6 was
5/6 is greater than 5/8. Good. Okay. Feedback for Non, something you're noticing about his work, something you could give him a compliment or a refinement. So maybe just being careful in the future. Yeah, because it didn't affect his answer this time, but it could. So it looks good, Non, but she's just saying, like, this space looks a little bit smaller than this space. So just being careful. That's good feedback. You want to call somebody else?
Yeah, that's how you space it out, but I don't think you put a 1 on the second one.
Oh, yeah. We forgot that one. So maybe when we sit back down, we can add that real quick. Good feedback. Because sometimes we're doing so many things, we just kind of forget just a simple little label. Okay? One more.
I really like how you did it, and I like that you included the diagram, like the numbers are sort of like and
Okay, and notice, like we talked about in that first problem, Non stacked his number line. Wasn't that so helpful to see which one's closer to one whole or which one's closer to 0 when they're stacked? Because really they're not that far apart, but when you're stacking them, it makes it a lot easier to see, rather than if they were side by side like we saw somebody model in the first one. But Non, I think you did a great job. I love that your zeros and your wholes are lining up at the same place, and we'll just keep practicing the equal partition.
Hey, Nicole, can I keep Noms up there and then show you down?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
That would be great.
Okay. All right, Callan, I want to see if they can see the difference between something that Callan wrote and something that Long wrote. Sorry, I don't know. Do you notice something different in particular right here?
Ooh, he switched it. He switched to what?
Does it, I'm curious, did y'all, how
Who
did you,
wrote it correctly?
Long. Because the first it says verse 5/8, and then 5/6. No, it doesn't matter.
So we're looking, let's look here. So put your focus here on the comparison statements is what they're called. Who wrote the correct comparison statement? Nobody did?
Callan wrote the same. No, Callan did because in the problem, it's the first fraction is 5/8, and then the next one is 5/6.
So you're saying that Callan's wrong then? That 5/8 is less than 5/6?
Callan, are you wrong?
No, I didn't say that he was wrong. I just said
Callan is not wrong.
Brandon, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna. Well, when Joseph was talking about the explanation, I was said they wrote the same thing. So how can it be different?
Wait, say that again?
It should switch. Yeah. So they were talking about it, the explanation, and I was like, no, it's the same. So nothing is different. So look, the frog jumped a longer distance. The frog jumped a longer distance.
So, what's the biggest difference between their answers? Gavin, what do you think?
Because there's like Callan didn't space it out that.
No?
We're looking here.
We're just looking at their
Focus on the comparison statement.
comparison statements.
Switch.
Okay, but
What do
what
you
about that?
Oh, so the sign is the greater than and then it's lesser.
Why
Are
did
both,
non write a greater than sign here?
Because 5/6 is greater than 5/8.
Because he wrote 5/6 first, and 5/6 is greater than 5/8. Why did Callan write a less than sign?
Because it's less than 5/6.
So, that was something really good to point out. Thank you, Mrs.
you're
Palengo.
welcome.
Your answers could look different depending on the order in which you're writing your fraction.
Are they right though?
Yeah.
So both are correct, both explanations are valid, but it's important for them to remember, as long as you tell me which one's greater than and less than.
Excellent.
Right, can I turn that back?
I like how you did it, Callan, but I think maybe the next time you could attempt to do this because on the bottom diagram.
And that's hard.
We're still practicing, right, Callan? But thank you for
But he did a great
Thank
job.
you for
I thought
that
that was a
polite
good
feedback.
comparison.
Thank you, Ms. Palengo.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me borrow your book, Callan, that was awesome.
Okay, so we went through our 1, 2, 3, and 4. How did you use what you've learned in earlier lessons to compare the fractions in these problems? Or you already just knew what to do? How did all of the lessons we've completed this week help you to compare the fractions in these word problems? Gavin?
Comparing the denominator and numerator, it's mixed.
This one was mixed. So in lesson 15, we had the same denominators, but different numerators. In lesson 16, the same numerators, different denominators. Today, in this lesson, you didn't know what you were going to get. What did you use to help you solve that?
The problem.
Look at your book. What strategies, what tools do you have that helped you to solve these problems? Lena? Number lines. Diagrams. Explanations. And that's just you explaining. Yeah, comparison statement. You need to know what that greater than sign means and that less than sign. But also just having that number sense and that relation to 0, which really the number line helps you to do. One more, Stephen.
And also fractions.
That's true. All of our knowledge of fractions has been building up to this point. If the fractions had the same numerator, we thought about the size of the denominators. This is what Gavin with touching our, and if they had the same denominator, we compared the numerator. So those lessons were kind of combined for, into this one. We're gonna quickly do what fraction makes sense. We're on page 73. Now that we've practiced comparing fractions, let's come up with fractions that are greater than, less than, or equivalent to a given fraction. We get that creative. So